We did it. Yay!
It's good. You'll love it.
Hey everyone, I am Damian Holbrook from TV Guide Magazine and TV Insider, and welcome to this WGA conversation with Rebecca Sonnenshine, the executive producer of The Boys and the writer of the Emmy-nominated season finale called What I Know. Congratulations! First off, that's amazing.
Thank you. I'm really excited. It was a little unexpected, but I'm super excited.
Right, like I think we were all kind of like shocked, but like it makes sense.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so let's talk first about before we even get to the Emmy stuff, like how did you get started?
Oh, as a writer? Well, I went to UCLA Film School as an undergrad. But I'd been like making these little movies my whole life. So first on audio cassette and then on video.
Oh, wow.
So I was very committed to doing this. Is all I ever wanted to do. So I ended up at UCLA and not specializing in writing at all. But after working then I got a job, many jobs in development, reading scripts. And I thought I could do better. You read a million scripts,
right.
And you're like, I think I can do better. So I tried that out. So I worked in independent film for a long time, and I did features. I moved into features, and I won a Nickel Fellowship, and that kind of launched me, I guess, sort of into the world of serious writing.
Right.
But I'd also always kind of been producing as well. So I've always been writing and producing, sometimes totally separate things.
Right. And so when it's writing and producing, that can get very tricky because those are two very different skill sets and very different kind of like draws on your time.
Yep.
When you started doing those two, what did you find yourself being more kind of comfortable with, or one that was more challenging for you?
Well, I think I'm just lucky because I did a lot more producing professionally than writing at first, and then, so when I became a TV writer, feature writing is not much about, they're like, great, thanks, bye. They don't necessarily want your producing skills, but I had been producing like films and stuff. So I had knowledge when I came into TV writing that not everybody has. I just, I know how to physically produce things. So that's that was definitely a bonus, I think, to the people I worked for. I think that you kind of have to have this equal skill set to be really good. Yeah. You have to develop one or the other. I mean, if you're like, you don't have the producing skills, you have to learn them, which, you can learn producing skills very easily. It's just time, it's just like experience. Writing is a little more like you kind of, you can learn a lot of craft, but you also do have to have just, not everyone can learn it. Right. So, but I'm not one of those people who says, I hate writing. I love writing. And I've worked with lots of people who it's like, I love having written, but I don't like to write, but I will sit and write all day. I love it. It's so fun.
Wow. Yeah. There's several like producers and showrunners that I follow and that I've dealt with, and I see them posting, like tweeting, they're like, should be working on the season finale, should be working on this project, but I'm instead looking for videos of cats. And it's like, okay, so they're just like journalists.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to say that we don't go in our YouTube holes. Every writer's room has there's certain the things that they return to. Like you'll have bits, your YouTube greatest hits that you'll go to for inspiration.
Oh, interesting. Who was an inspiration for you when you were starting, or like even looking to get into this? Who were you like, oh, I could do this?
Um, I mean, when I was, when I was, it's slightly remarkable sometimes, I think, because I was really, I always knew I wanted to do this, even though there really weren't any women. I mean, there are very few women when I was starting out, but I would look at Steven Spielberg and go, I'll do that. Not even like, just know like,
You
oh,
were
he's a
such a
dude.
Dawson Leary.
Yeah, I was just like, I'll do that, without really thinking it through. So, yeah, I just really loved, I mean, to be honest, I liked genre stuff, but the stuff that I really responded to was, I love Steven Spielberg stuff or James Brooks, like as writers, just having this very grounded sense of character and situation. And so I really think I mean, this is like my kid version of me. Like Spielberg stuff is like very grounded and real in human emotion, especially all the early stuff that really resonated with me. So it felt real, all those movies, even though they were very fantastical.
Right.
And I just carried that. I think I carried that sense of, grounded genre with me as I grew up.
That absolutely makes sense then, because when I look at your resume or your IMDb page, like the shows you have worked on are, even though they deal with the genre stuff, really rooted all of their characters in more emotional stories.
Yeah.
You starting off with the Vampire Diaries and talking about like working, women in the industry, like you worked with Julie Plec, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that, I
Yeah.
mean, those characters were, I mean, everyone was like a vampire, a witch, a werewolf, whatever, but, we showed up for the stories, not the
Yeah.
special effects.
Yeah. Those are just the bells and whistles and the fun stuff that makes the stakes very high. But yeah, like the emotional lives of those characters, like for example, in the Vampire Diaries, there were a lot of just sort of like very human emotions, and it's a lot of, that shows a lot. It's wish fulfillment in some ways, and it's about finding your way as a young person through relationships, but it's also about grief and loneliness of, there's two sides to being a vampire. It's like you can live forever, but then you have to live forever, and I think there's a real sadness to living forever that would weigh on those characters, which I mean, writers' rooms are like basketball teams, right? You have people who everybody has to be able to play well, but everybody sort of has their special roles. And I really like, I think Julie does too, but I really like the kind of darkness and the sadness of some of those things, like the angst of, and like,
when you're dealing with a town where people died on the regular, you got to really delve into that. And I think a lot of people kind of would dismiss the Vampire Diaries, but when you watch it, you're like, oh, they're dealing with like some heavy themes here.
Yeah. Just the idea of, people they lost family, they lost friends, or they lost their own lives, they became vampires, but that carries this burden. And so a lot, there's many storylines about how to become human again. Living forever is not everything, I think there's real loneliness to living forever and, watching the world go by. But then on the other hand, there is wish fulfillment. So those two things, yeah. I mean, those two things, it had a tension between them that was really fun to play. And I really like would feel those things deeply. And I think I was, I felt Stefan as a character most deeply because he was kind of angst ridden, and that's so fun. I love angst.
Right, exactly. And so then you went into like Outcast, which was a totally different world, I'm assuming, because now you're working in the cable world where things can get a little bit grittier.
Yeah, it was super exciting. I was so happy to get to do something that was so different, and at the same time had a lot of the same sort of, mythology, world building. Those are all, they share a DNA, they have certain rules to follow, but it was very adult. And it also was a lot about loss and loneliness and the characters kind of having a burden to bear. And that was a very fun show. Is all of a sudden you can curse. And I mean, I think the Vampire Diaries had a lot of blood. So I'm not saying that I don't think I haven't topped that in terms of blood.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
even like cumulative, like, yes, The Boys has a lot of blood, but
Boys, right?
it does have a lot of blood, but there's no way that we walked around with like ketchup bottles full of blood. That's, on the Vampire Diaries. There's so much blood.
And so much blood. You're looking like 22 episodes a season, or like 8 seasons or something. So like, that's,
So, but Outcast was awesome. And it was, it was very adult, but it had the same sort of emotional resonance and really great actors and that's super fun to be able to play with, and so it was a totally different experience working in cable,
because then
where you're not negotiating.
Then you did The Crossing, which was like super high concept genre stuff for ABC, and back to the restrictions. Even stricter than the CW, as I found out.
Wow. I'm the person who argues with standards and practices, over the line. Like, you can't say dick. We could say dick on the Vampire Diaries. They're like, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess they have different advertisers.
And they had a different policy. So, but that was like one of the greatest pilots I've ever read. So I was super excited. Like, it really was the most amazing pilot script. You read it and you're like, this is for broadcast. I'm like, I want this job. I went after that job.
And I love that, like, it took forever, like, not forever, but it didn't tell us in the pilot what was going on.
No, it was like a mystery, and it was great. It was super exciting. And I mean, those shows are hard to do for broadcast because they're kind of heady, but we had so much fun writing on that show and making it. It was such a great idea, and we ended up in I thought the season, got better and better as we went along, because it just got weirder and deeper, and it was super fun to work on.
And then, so how did The Boys come? Like, at what point did you get the call, or did you, like, was it they're looking for writers or producers, or did you know everybody?
No, I didn't know anyone.
Oh, wow.
I had just finished The Crossing, actually, and it hadn't aired yet. I literally had just come off of it like that week, and I got a call that they were looking for someone to come to this comic book show. And the executive was Andy Green, who's at Amazon, but she used to be at Fox International, which is, I did Outcast. Right. And so I think she maybe pointed them in the direction of me. And I met with Eric, and we talked about, I'm not the, I like the Marvel universe, but I'm not a comic book person. I don't even know how to read comic books. Like, I'm always like, wait, what way, like, which panel am I supposed to be looking at?
Which panel do I go to? Right.
I just didn't grow up with it. And, I had a brother and he didn't read comic books. And so it's always been like not something that is like part of my DNA, but it doesn't really matter because it's all about world building and character and stuff like that. So I met with Eric, and at that point I was still like in first position on The Crossings, and Eric and one of the showrunners on The Crossing knew each other. So he's like, if I hire her, I'll give her back.
Oh, nice. See, I like to hear those things.
So that was really nice. So I kind of jumped in, and they'd been working for quite some time on The Boys. So I came in to write episode 6 of the first season.
So what would that?
That's about, it's kind of where we get Kimiko's backstory, and she gets a name, and it's the reality show for the Soups, which was super fun. And that was kind of a very meta episode because there's a lot of like shots within shots.
Right. Cameras on cameras.
So it was a little bit of it was like very, some of the episodes were really big with special effects. That one was big conceptually because there's a lot of like, we're shooting the people shooting the show, and how do we like juggle all that, it's a little harder than it might seem in the finished product. It's like just keeping it straight in your head. But it was very fun. So I came in on episode 6, and I end up co-writing the finale of that season. And then I went to Toronto for most of that season 1 shooting. I was producing a lot of episodes, even the ones that I didn't write. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time with the production in that first season.
So, and that's normal. That's normal. Like when someone has written an episode, they're usually on set for the filming of that.
Yeah, I think it depends on all shows that I've been on. It's not every show does that, especially now, because it's so separate. Like the writing happens and then the producing happens. But yeah, it's normal. I hadn't spent, but I don't usually produce episodes that are not mine. So I produced other episodes as well. I was just kind of one of the on-set producers, and just like continuity wise, like churning it through.
Good, yeah.
But it gave me a lot of insight into the cast and the process, and just having someone there like all the time is I think it's helpful. You can sort of adjust to people's strengths, and it's a big show.
And I'm sure the actors appreciate having a writer on set as well.
I mean, I think so, yeah, even though sometimes I'm like, no, that's not it.
right, you're the one handing out the rewrites too. So
I'm handing out the no's.
Right.
But I also am always there to answer questions and make changes, if we feel like, oh, this is not working. And one of the things that I do like to be doing on set is to sometimes you're watching a scene and you're like, there's something that's not working here, and I don't know why. And then if you're there, you can say, what do we think? Like, let's try a different line, or let's try cutting the line, or there's something that's not working here. And so you can kind of like get a little R&D there and try it out, try out a few different ways.
You're editing on site.
Yeah, you're like looking at the material getting, and sometimes you're like, oh, it'll all cut together totally fine. Or sometimes you're like, there's something off. I don't know what it is. Like there's something that's not working in the space. Sometimes the space is like, oh, it's not right. There's something about the space that conflicts with the scene in a weird way that you didn't anticipate. And so like, it's not big enough, or it's too big, or it's just not laid out like the scene is laid out. And so then you can go, okay, how do we fix this? And then a writer can be, helpful on set with the help of the actors.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So there's obviously a writer's room, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Yeah.
So I'm always curious, because the way it's always portrayed on TV and in films, like these writer's rooms are always like almost playgrounds or playpens. Is there tell me about your writer's room. Does everyone have a specific seat they are always in? Are there snacks? Is there a lock on the inside and the outside of the door?
So for the boys, let's see. Yeah, we kind of always sit in our seats. I don't know why, but I think I gravitate towards that. I don't know why, but I just do. Sometimes it's about like where you can see the board best, and like I need to be kind of close because I can't I can't see from far away. And some people need like more space. They need to be able to wiggle around. I'm not a wiggler, so I'm pretty big. Our room had a lot of windows, so we could kind of look out upon what it was, that Olympic Boulevard. But we try not to keep snacks in there, to be honest. I think because it's distracting. Not that we couldn't bring snacks in, but it's not like it's bad to have a basket of snacks there. But we weren't too crazy in our room. We tried to like we kept pretty contained hours, so we worked really we're pretty focused in that room. Because
how many people normally?
It's not that big of a room. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. The first season we had four people. And then And then, yeah, I think the second season it was 5.
Wow.
Plus Eric.
Right.
So yeah, so it's not huge. But yeah, so it was a focused room. It was a focused room. Although I will say, like in our season 2, somehow we discovered all the writers really liked show tunes. And so we would be able to sing. Our skill was being able to sing the whole of Chicago.
Wow.
Start to finish. And it would just kind of be like slowly kind of like join in, and then it would peter out. Maybe between our deep thoughts about the characters, we could break into a little song. Right. So that was fun. But yeah, it's a good writer's room. It was very focused. It's, not a lot of goofing around. Just kind of like, let's just get this, like, let's really focus, drill down on stuff. So.
And what is your process? Say they say like, all right, well, you're going to write the season finale. What is the process from that point?
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a serialized show, it's basically, 8 parts of a whole, these seasons. So the process is really that we have mapped out our season in broad strokes, and then in less broad strokes, like getting into the little nitty gritty. And we've got character arcs that we want to accomplish. And we, for some characters like the Deep, we kind of have to put a separate track for us. This is what we want to accomplish, and then trying to integrate it into each episode, because he's a little on the outside. It's not easy to. I've worked on several shows that are juggling a big cast, and those are challenging because you want to give everybody their storylines, but it's very much a balancing act. So sometimes things slide around from episode to episode. We'll say like, we're trying to cram too much in, so let's like break the story up and put some of it in another episode. So by the time you're getting to the writing of it, it's, we've all kind of settled on, okay, this is what we're going to do. And especially in the season finale, it's like, like it's the scaffolding is every other episode. Exactly. So you really, and you have to know where you're going to do that. So we did know exactly where we were going to go, and then tried to figure out ways to get there. So once we've got we did very detailed pitches for this show, extremely detailed pitches, so that we really knew, not that it wouldn't change after you've written it, but to go into the first draft, you definitely know, okay, this is what we're doing. And then it's all up for grabs. Once you have a draft, it's like, let's throw that stuff out.
Right. With the finale, in rewatching it, you had so much to get done.
Yeah.
Like there is so, like I was rewatching and writing down notes, and it's literally like there's the church, there's the Church of the Collective, there's the Nazi reveal, like the literal actual reveal. And you have to like slide all this information in. There's the whole Ryan situation. There's the girls get it done fight sequence. Something I am fascinated with, and it's very rare. How do you write a fight sequence that actually says something? Like you actually, it was a great sequence, but it also showed us these women as the most capable players on the canvas.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth is like when you write a fight scene, you have ideas, but really it's like kind of convey the tone of the fight. Mm-hmm. Is it a messy fight? Is it a slick fight? Is it like people are showing off? Or is it like down and dirty, like grabbing and hitting? It's you try to get the tone of it. And then it becomes your stunt coordinator, like interpreting that, because there's no way to write out every moment of a fight. It doesn't, you can, but they'll change it all. So the most important thing is getting like pieces of dialogue that you want to happen. And this fight in particular, what we wanted was just like a cathartic stomp down, basically. And so sometimes you're writing a fight in a space where you're trying to think of the things that you use in your fight. So if it's in a kitchen, you're using knives. If you're in a lumber yard, you're using lumber. You think of all the things that, and this is just in a field, and it was just like, there's real anger there on the part, and they wanted their due, they wanted their revenge, and they all had different reasons for doing it. It just became very visceral. And so, the director and the stunt coordinator, that's where then you kind of go, okay, this is the feeling that you want to convey. This is what the emotions of the characters are, the backstory that led them to this point. And then it becomes their baby.
It was, I'm telling you, talk about cathartic. It was one of those things where I was watching it and I felt the relief.
Yeah.
Of like, yes, get her.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was the other thing that I was important for me to sort of take it from in episode 2, which I wrote. It was this girls get it done was this marketing slogan, and it was kind of a response to like, isn't it cool that girls fight, but it's such a, commercial concept, and they're trying to like, the VOT is trying to like capitalize on that. And what you wanted in this one is just like, it's just a fight, and there's nothing pretty about it.
No,
there's nothing like pretty or cinematic in this VOT cinematic universe about it. It's just like, it's these visceral like punches and smackdown and stomps. They're just stomping her, so it just becomes the thing that you want to see in movies that are about, women like kicking ass. Like, it's not about like, look, we're women kicking ass. It's like just getting it done.
Care of it. Yeah.
It's done.
And you also had, and it was something that was kind of beautifully juggled throughout the entire season. I struggle with it because I don't want to humanize Homelander or Stormfront, but there were moments of like actual real, almost empathy for these characters that you created for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the Homelander stuff for me, the fun thing about writing is that you can put little things into your own episodes that are like just your little things, and then carry them into other scenes and other episodes or new seasons. Like, you can carry these little bits with you. And the thing is like in episode 6 in season 1, there's a lot of pain in how Homelander was raised. And so in this episode, I kind of carried some of those things, into episode 2, and then episode, 8, those, for me, these little things that really made Homelander who he is, are these like little indignities and a lack of love in his life. And I just don't think like villains that don't have humanity are very interesting to write. So it doesn't mean that people aren't villains just because they're complicated. That's the interesting thing about villains, is like, why do they do the things they do? And so for Homelander, like struggling with being a parent because he wants to be loved. And there's this, your kids don't always love you, like they do, but they can be cruel, or they don't always do and Homelander had this idea that this is an unconditional love towards me because I'm the parent. And that's just, he was kind of having to deal with it and like talk to this kid and share things about his own life. Which, I know he's a villain, but he's complicated, and he's human.
And then you give us that great line, because it's so interesting, because you've got this little Darth Vader situation going on in the corner with Stormfront missing her limbs and burnt and uttering German. And then you have Queen Maeve delivering that line to him, after she she tells him she's going to reveal the video, as long as no one ever loves you again. Like, that's what will stop him. Like, that's so amazing. Like, it's nothing other than like, if this happened, if I release this, no one will ever love you again. And that's what stops him dead. I love that.
Yeah, he is. I mean, our whole season was built on, Homelander leaves, season 1 in a powerful place, except that he's killed the only person that really truly loves him, if she does indeed.
Right.
And he's seeking love, and if he doesn't get it, like, that's his weakness. That's his weakness, is that he needs to be loved. And we gave him these different, we gave him a kid, that's supposed to provide that love, and Stormfront, who I think it was genuine between these people.
I know.
Like, it's weird, but yeah, it's like a love story. So yeah, and then humanizing Stormfront. I mean, that's the thing. Like, she's a product of how she was, raised, and where she was born, and the life she lived. And I loved that when we kind of came up with she's got a daughter who's old and died, she outlived.
That goes to that vampire thing of like the sadness of living forever.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm sorry, but that was just like kind of like affect a person. Like, even if they're a villain, like I loved that idea so much, that she had this daughter. And I was a big advocate. That I like all the
get it messy
love elements, parents and children and siblings and people, and I love that stuff.
How long did it take you to write the script for this?
I mean, I think at this point we were it had to go fast. I didn't have a lot of time, like a couple weeks, I think, and then maybe another couple weeks for revisions. Maybe we were already shooting, and we needed that script. So it was, like, write it fast.
Yeah. And at that point, had you already been renewed for season 3? Like, were you aware that you were writing a story that could,
I can't remember if that was true or not, but I think we all assumed. I mean, by that time, because we actually started shooting season 2 before season 1 came out, and then it came out and people liked it, and so we're like, all right, this will go.
I feel like you're going to be doing season 4 before season 3 comes out.
It's the delays, the world delays.
Yes.
So it's been a crazy.
There is a line in the episode where Butcher, when he's cutting the deal with Edgar, he says that mothers will do anything to protect their kids. Mm-hmm. Were you warning us?
I don't know. No,
because you knew going into the episode that Becca was going to die, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we knew going into the season. So, yeah, because it just, that was something. Yeah, I mean, there's, it's kind of a, we try not to telegraph things, but like, obviously, like, if you go back and watch the season, you'll see all the seeds laid in, because, and also we can go back and refine things, but there's a lot of, we call it laying track for all of our stories to come together, and there's a lot that we seed in that's not necessarily super obvious at the time, but then you go back and you go, oh, so you're not making it up as you go along.
What is it like when you know you have to write someone's death scene? Like, do you go and tell them?
Well, I think in this case, people know, they know going in. I mean, they know going in. So because we're ahead of the game, So, but I remember we discussed for a long time how that would happen, and I was always a big advocate of Ryan killing his mother, by accident. Because we talked about, like, does he do it on purpose? That's like very early in the season. We're trying to figure out, like, what do we want out of this moment? But that became it's just so tragic. I love tragic things, you know, we all love tragic things. So we talked about that a lot. We talked about how does she die, and whose hand, and what are the ripple effects of that going into the next season, and stuff like that. So those are the things we discussed, like until everybody's tired of it.
Right.
You know, we talk and talk and talk and talk about this, and you know, I was also huge, you know, I was like, this is the season of Becca and Butcher's romance, you know. Not, you know, that's like where I'm coming from, coming into a season, you know, and because he was so Butcher in this whole first season, you know, unraveling the story of what had happened to her, and he thought she was dead, and that was driving him, and then to find out she's alive, that drives him in a totally other way. And there's just a lot to mine there, but there's a real like romantic element that I found very exciting. And I think there, you know, it came out really well. And I think through, you know, it was like threaded through the whole season. And my favorite scene of the finale really is Butcher telling Becca she's got to go on without him. Like he fucked her over, and he might do it again. And it was like sad and romantic and tragic and
noble.
Really awesome.
Yeah. And then you get to do all this fun. You talked about like almost the meta stuff, like the reality show. We've got the VOT movies. This episode opens with the PSA of how to survive a supervillain attack, which is hilarious and funny, but it's also so rooted in reality.
Oh yeah.
That's what the kids are seeing in school now.
Yeah. No, it's really disturbing, and I was, you know, really glad to whatever. I you know, gun control is like a very meaningful like goal for me. But these videos that are out there, there's like two different kinds of styles. That sounds crazy. Like there's many of these videos out there, which is just sad and terrifying. But there's the very sort of slick ones that are almost like an action movie. And then there's the very handmade ones. And I actually like put all these together, and I went to Eric and I'm like, which do you think we should do? And he's like, definitely not the slick one. We do not want to do that. And I was like, okay. So we went with this sort of like it's very, for VOT being a very, you know, an entertainment, you know, division company that could do anything. It's very handmade. Yeah. And that's, you know, in the style of a lot of these. And it's straight, you know, out of these videos. And that's the horrible, like they're like, protect yourself with a stapler or a skateboard. And you're like, how do we get here?
And that's that you weren't making that stuff up.
I'm not making that up. I'm just saying it's a supervillain instead of an active shooter. And that's like, it's funny, but it's also like horrible.
Well, that's really what The Boys is so good at.
Exactly.
It's like getting, you know, like taking horrible things that are happening in the real world and giving us at least a reason to laugh at it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And just sort of, you know, that's the joy of sort of this kind of like political satire. Like you really, and it's going after, you know, everyone. So everybody, you know, nobody's safe from our satire.
It's the best satire.
Yeah, exactly. Like equal opportunity. So yeah, it feels like you're doing something. I don't know if we're really doing something, but it was a stressful time, and a lot of, you know, we did this season before kind of things kind of like went to like an 11, you know, things. But they're always there simmering under the surface, and so yeah.
So I can only imagine how riddled season 3 is with topical situations.
Yeah.
Your writer's room was probably very, there was no shortage of material, I'm sure.
There's never a shortage of material in a satire, which is great. Like it, and it's, you know, it's a political satire, but the politics of the show are also about corporate politics, and that's never going away. It doesn't matter who's in charge. So sort of corporate malfeasance, one of my favorite words. I think I stuck it into the episode. It's a problem that's so big. It's like it transcends, politics. So we're living through it, like, as corporations gobble each other up and they become more and more powerful. We'll never run out of material.
I want to thank you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the show. I'm excited for you. I'm so glad you like writing, because I think you should probably start writing out an acceptance speech. Maybe.
My mom thinks so too.
Yeah. Oh, see? You always trust the mom.
Yeah.
And so congratulations. Thank you again. Thank you, WGA. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had a blast. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.